Just how bad is the weather going to get? Britain has been hit by this storm. It's a real concern. According to the Telegraph newspaper, Britain started to shut down last night as Storm Goretti made landfall. A life-threatening weather bomb brought winds of up to 100 miles an hour to the southwest, whilst a foot of snow was forecast for parts of Wales, the Midlands and South Yorkshire. Well, the Midlands is in borderline lockdown at the moment. What holds for the weather in the days ahead? Let's get the views of the brilliant Joe Wheeler, who is a meteorologist at Square Raindrop. Good morning, Joe. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Mark. I hope you're well. Yes, we had this big storm come in yesterday, Storm Goretti, named by the French service. But if they hadn't, we would have done. And it arrived as a multi-hazard event. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, it meant that it brought some very strong winds, some heavy rain, it brought some snow, but not everything to everywhere. Now, the winds, of course, were strongest across the southwest. That's where we had a red warning. Officially, the highest gusts were 99 miles per hour, but unofficially, many stations reported wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. And I think at Padstow, 123. Now, that's yet to be confirmed. The A30 was shut. That's the main road in and out of Cornwall. Fallen trees shutting it in both directions. The train stopped last night, I think, at 6 o'clock. Many places are without power this morning. And not just in Cornwall as well, parts of Wales and the Midlands. Because as this storm moved through, that's when it started to fall as snow. It closed Birmingham Airport last night. East Midlands Airport was shut this morning at 5 o'clock. And again, as I say, many people without power and struggling to travel because many of the trains weren't working either. Many flights delayed and diverted. It has caused chaos. Now it's moving away. Recently it was snowing quite heavily in Nottingham, and it's going to make its way through the East Midlands, and it's slowing down now. So in fact, as a rain event, it's going to affect central and eastern counties, and with that some fairly blustery weather too. Have to say in all of this, Scotland and Northern Ireland not really affected very much. They've already had snow showers over the last 4 or 5 days, and once again schools are shut in parts of Scotland. Ice, I think, is more of a risk there. But this is all going to move away. Things become drier from the west, and you think it's all calmed down. Now, what I would say, Mark, is that usually you see when we have cold air across the country, and that's cold air that doesn't want to move. It's very sluggish. And then we get something coming in from the west, which is slightly milder. There's an undercut. We get snow, but then the air becomes milder behind it, and everything just turns to rain. But that hasn't happened this time. As this storm moves away, the cold air is coming back. So tonight, there's a risk of a widespread frost and obviously ice on the roads where we've got any water lying. And I think there'll be quite a bit of that. And then, as the cold air returns for the weekend, we get a system coming in for Sunday, which once again, as it moves into that cold air, could give some potentially disruptive snow.
And of course, I mean, far be it from me to say you're the expert, Joe, but I would suggest that ice is in some ways worse than snow.
Yes, because you can't see it very well. And also if the roads are gritted, but then there's sufficient rainfall that it washes that away. And then, of course, that freezes up. Ice is always incredibly dangerous. And in this country, it's handled really quite well with the gritters, etc. But that doesn't alter the fact that some roads and pavements will be invisibly really quite dangerous. So, I mean, that is something to watch out for. But we've had this cold air across us now for 7 to 10 days. And so I think we're getting used to that. The only difference being that initially it was a very dry cold. Certainly for central parts of the country, there was nothing on the floor to freeze up. This time there will be, as this storm has gone through, as the snow melt, and obviously we've got snowfields over Scotland, so temperatures there very low once again. But certainly I think the cold air is going to stay with us until after the weekend.
All right, so we're through the worst of it in terms of the snow, but ice is the next one to look out for. Ice and rain and cold temperatures. Would those be the headlines?
And potentially snow on Sunday. That is another watch one. As I say, this frontal system coming in from the Atlantic, trying to bring this milder air, but it will bump into this cold air once again. And that potentially could give snow for a time. The timing of these things is very important. If you think about yesterday's storm, it actually moved in overnight at a time when people were sleeping or trying to, with wind gusts over 100 miles per hour. But people weren't out. They weren't on the roads. They weren't on the pavements. They weren't going to and from work or school, So at least that was somewhat of a blessing. But of course, Cornwall as well, seeing those very strong winds. A lot of boats around at the moment, moored up or in harbours. Goodness only knows what the damage has been to those.
OK, Joe, thank you so much for the update. Really interesting, and look forward to catching up soon. Meteorologist at Square Raindrop, Joe Wheeler.